Good morning, first year students of SRT RGMC Ambazogai. Here now in this our department online lecture session, I am going to continue with the last lecture topic of CNS, that is cerebellum. In the previous lecture, I have covered part of the cerebellum, part 1. Now here I assumed that you are the good and sincere students. You read that topic and understand that topic. So I will continue with this I will continue the further points in relevance to the cerebellum. Now already Now here in the last lecture, I have divided this topic under two headings, that are the functional anatomy, anatomical divisions, functional divisions of cerebellum, cerebellar cortex and neural circuits, that we have covered in the part 1. Now here in today's lecture I am continue that topic with the under the heading part 2, and that topic is important for you, not for your academic as well as clinical and as well as for even exam point of view. It is very important part. Now here in this topic we have to cover which points: connections of cerebellum, functions of cerebellum and applied aspect. Now if you understand the previous topic, that it is easy to understand the today's lecture. Now here before starting this today's lecture, I am going to revise some points, some important points that are required as backbone for understanding the today's lecture. That only I will just revise in 2 PowerPoint slides. So here in the previous lecture we have discussed about the organization of the cerebellum. In that organization of cerebellum is divided into 2 important components, that is cerebellar cortex, and buried within that cerebellar cortex are the cerebellar nuclei. So cerebellar cortex, mainly what are the various layers of cerebellar cortex? Molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer, granule cell layer. And cerebellar nuclei buried within that layer are what are that nuclei? Dentate nuclei, nuclear globus and emboliform, that together are called as the nucleus interpositus, and the next nucleus is nucleus fastigial. Now here just because for the basis of working of the connection and function, it is the neural circuit. So just only we will give the fast revision about in that neural circuits, the cells present in the various layers of the cerebellar cortex, that are, this is the molecular layer, that is composed of mainly of the parallel fiber and cells, that are the basket cells and Golgi's basket cells and stellate cells. Then the layer of the Purkinje cells, and this is the layer of the granule cells. Now here if you see here, there are the two apparents are of 2 types. One is of the climbing fiber type apparent and mossy fiber type of apparent. These climbing fiber types of apparents are very important for the important functions of the cerebellum. They have the main important role in the learning and to correct the error while doing the cerebellar function. Then important point while discussing the connection and function, that this slide or this image must be in front of your eye. That are what is that image? Functional divisions of cerebellum. So functional divisions of cerebellum, first is important, it is the vestibular cerebellum, that is composed of the proculonodular lobe and adjacent part of vermi. Then is spinocerebellum, having the 2 components. This central component is mainly in concern with the adjustment of the medial motor descending system for providing the posture, equilibrium and the proximal limb movement. And this intermediate part of cerebellum is responsible to carry out the voluntary, skillful, patterned, sequential movements. And this last part or lateral part of cerebellum is called a cerebrocerebellum, having the to and fro communication with the cerebral cortex, and along with cerebral cortex it will work to mainly important function or higher function, that is about the to plan and sequence of the motor movements. Now by seeing this revision, of the previous lecture. Now we will start with the actual lecture, today's lecture. So this is an actual today's lecture. First we will start with the connections of the cerebellum. So in this connection, first we will discuss the what are the apparent types of connection. And before going to this apparent type of connection, important point in the cerebellum, here as like in the cerebral cortex, here in the cerebellum also there is the somatosensory projection present for the peripheral areas. Now here if you see that this is the central part, already central part of the vermis. Now it is called as the vermis, that already I have told in the previous PowerPoint image that this central part of vermis, it is mainly responsible for the maintenance of the tone and posture of the central part of the body and proximal limb movement. So automatically body presentation in the central part, it is seen in the which part? Vermis of the cerebellum. And if you see in this intermediate part, that is responsible for the skillful voluntary patterns movements, mainly rapidly active movement. So automatically this intermediate part is showing the presentation of the limbs. And if you see this lateral part, there is no any representation is seen. That means here this part is mainly responsible for the planning and sequencing of the movement along with the cerebral cortex. Now we switch on to the next important topic, that is the apparent connections of the cerebellum. Now these apparent connections. Now in this apparent connection, the first connection, it is the cortico-pontocerebellar tract. This is extensive and very important tract that will carries mainly information from the cerebral cortex, then to the that then relate into the pontine nuclei, then it is related into the cerebellar cortex, cerebellar hemisphere, that is opposite cerebellar hemisphere. And this information is mainly important. And this, from which part of the cerebral cortex it will carry the information? It will mainly carry the information from the premotor cortex and its association primary motor cortex, association areas of the motor cortex, that are the premotor cortex, and also the somatosensory areas and its association areas in the parietal cortex, and that will relate mainly into the connection with that of the lateral part of the cerebellar hemisphere. And this information is very important for the planning and the timing of the sequential movement. The next important tract, this is the pontocerebellar tract, and that is entering into the cerebellar hemisphere via the superior cerebellar peduncle. Now next important tract, that is oliocerebellar tract. Name itself, that is these fibers arise from the inferior olivary nucleus and from the opposite side. Now here important point of this inferior olivary nucleus, this inferior olivary nucleus acts as an integrating center for the information from the spinal cord, from the brainstem, from the red nucleus and cerebral cortex. So automatically all this information is conveyed to the cerebellum. It is relayed into the all part of the cerebellar hemisphere, and this tract is called as oliocerebellar tract. This tract is very important. And now the apparent fibers that are carrying via this oliocerebellar tract are of which type? Are of Purkinje, all of the climbing fiber types. Then next tract, that is the vestibulocerebellar tract. Now name itself, that is vestibulocerebellar tract, means this tract carries the information from ipsilateral vestibular nuclei as well as from the vestibular apparatus to the cerebellum. This information is mainly supplied to the flocculonodular and vermis part of the cerebellum, and this information is mainly important to carry out the function of the maintenance of the tone, posture and equilibrium. The next tract, that is the reticulocerebellar tract. that it carries from the same side as well as opposite side from the brainstem reticular nuclei to the cerebellum. Mainly it is also terminated in the central part of the cerebellum. Now these are the again important two tracts, ventral spinocerebellar tract and dorsal spinocerebellar tract. Now name itself, these are the ascending tracts as they are sensory tracts. Now these tracts, in that both the tracts, important point is that they have the fastest conduction speed, that at about 120 meters per second. Now here this ventral spinocerebellar tract mainly carries the information from the anterior motor horn cells of the spinal cord. What is the peculiarity of this anterior motor horn cells that carry the information from ventral spinocerebellar tract is that here this ventral spinocerebellar tract, it will act as the center for the giving information to the periphery. Now here in this ventral spinocerebellar anterior motor horn cell, here in this part actually there we get the information from the higher center cerebral cortex, brainstem, as well as intrinsic information from the spinal cord. That means here at this level, as it is sending mainly to the signal to the periphery, here mainly important is that here at this level mainly there is the presence of the motor efference copy of the information, and here this motor efference copy of the motor signals from the CNS, it is now transmitted to the cerebellum. Now here the dorsal spinocerebellar, now here ventral spinocerebellar tract and dorsal spinal, though both are the sensory tract. But what is the difference? This ventral spinocerebellar tract mainly sends which information to the cerebellum? It will mainly sending the motor efference copy to the cerebellum, and dorsal spinocerebellar tract both are arising from the Clark cell that are located in the spinal cord, and here ventral spinocerebellar tract carries from both sides, that is from the same side as well as the opposite side, and dorsal spinocerebellar tract mainly carry the information on the same side. But this dorsal spinocerebellar tract mainly carries which information? That is the sensory information from the peripheral parts, mainly from the muscle spindle, most of the information from the muscle spindle, as well as information from the Golgi tendon organ, always other information from the position receptors, joint receptors, tactile receptors of the body. So automatically it will convey the information to the cerebellum about what is the state of the contraction of the muscle, what is the tension of the muscle, what type of the tension in the muscle, what type of forces acting on the body. So all the sensory information is gathered, is collected in the cerebellum. No doubt that means both are the sensory tract, ventral spinocerebellar as well as dorsal spinocerebellar tract. But ventral spinocerebellar tract sending which impulse? That is the motor efference copy of the signal, and dorsal spinocerebellar mainly conveying the sensory information. The next tract, that is the rubrocerebellar tract. Rubro means it is the red nucleus that is located in the midbrain. Now this rubrocerebellar tract from opposite red nucleus, also the information is sending to the cerebellar hemisphere. Then cuneo-cerebellar tract. So cuneo-cerebellar tract means from the nucleus cuneatus. Now this is also the component or branch of the dorsal column system. Now dorsal column system, it is an important ascending tract that is mainly carrying all the fine sensory signals to the CNS. Now here this cuneo-cerebellar tract, these are the external arcuate fibers from the same side as well as from the opposite side, giving the information to the cerebellar hemisphere about the peripheral sensation. Now the tectocerebellar tract. Tectum means from the superior collicula and middle collicula. The superior collicula and inferior collicula will act as a relay station for auditory and visual sensation. This information is also conveyed to the cerebellum. Now if you see from this afferent connection, cerebellum will get the sensory information from the ventral spinocerebellar tract, dorsal spinocerebellar tract, cuneo-cerebellar tract and the tectocerebellar tract, and also from the important all the components of the brain, that is from the cortex, inferior olivary nucleus, vestibular nuclei, reticular nuclei and red nucleus. Now this is the diagrammatic representation of all these tracts. Now this is the cortico-pontocerebellar tract. Then next this is the olivocerebellar tract. This is the vestibulocerebellar tract. Then this is reticulocerebellar tract. Then these are the two dorsal spinocerebellar and ventral spinocerebellar, that are the sensory tracts. Now after completion of this afferent connections will shift to the efferent connection. So here if you see these efferent connections, so this already I have told in the neural circuit that efferent connections are the efferents or the information or signals from the cerebellum is only going via the nuclei, and that nuclei are of the four types, that are dentate nucleus, and second the globus and emboliformis, it's called as the interposed nucleus, and third is the next is the fastigial nucleus. So while dealing with these efferent connections, you must know that are the mainly this information is always carried via the nuclei. So while discussing this efferent connection, we'll discuss in consult with this deep cerebellar nuclei. Now before going to that, again this image you have to keep in front of your eye. That is from this vestibulocerebellum mainly to the vestibular nuclei. Then from this central part of the vermis or medial part of the cerebellum mainly to the medial descending system. Then intermediate part of cerebellum to the peripheral limb muscle for carrying out the purposeful, skillful, voluntary movement. And this last part or lateral part is mainly responsible in connection with the cerebral cortex for the planning and timing of the movement. Now here if you see, so the first we will see the connections of the lateral zone of the cerebellum. Now here the information from the lateral zone of cerebellum is carried via dentate nucleus. Now from this dentate nucleus, then it is transmitted to the contralateral, ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei of thalamus. It is relayed into the ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei of thalamus of the opposite side, and after that it will send the information to the cerebral cortex, mainly to the motor cortex of the cerebellum. Now then next we will discuss the connection of the intermediate zone of the cerebellum. Now this intermediate zone is mainly responsible for to carrying out or the execution of the skillful, purposeful, sequential motor activity. So automatically it signals from intermediate zone of cerebellum, signals are carried via the interposed nucleus. Now this from interposed nucleus, here these signals are going to the various components. First it will go into the ventrolateral and ventroanterior nuclei of thalamus. Then again it will give the information to the cerebral cortex. Then second, from this, for the execution of the motor activity, these signals are also given to the first to the several midline structures of the thalamus and also the basal ganglia. Already I have told this basal ganglia and cerebellum act as assistants while performing the motor activity. And third, from this intermediate zone, information is also conveyed to different connection, conveyed also to the red nucleus and reticular formation of the upper portion of the brain stem. Now third nucleus, that is from the flocculonodular lobe and vermis. This information is carried via the fastigial nucleus, and this information is mainly for in concern with the maintenance of tone, posture and equilibrium. So automatically that information is mainly sent to the brainstem vestibular nuclei, a reticular formation of brainstem via vestibulospinal and via reticulospinal. They control the tone, posture and equilibrium. And here this motor education of the peripheral part or distal limbs for carrying out the smooth purposeful pattern movement is executed via corticospinal tract and rubrospinal tract. That's why the information is going to the cerebral cortex and as well as to the red nucleus. And lateral zone of information is mainly used for the purpose of the planning and timing of the sequential movement. Now this is the diagrammatic representation of the efferent connection. Now if you see, this is the cerebello-thalamocortical tract, then this is via the fastigial nucleus, mainly going to the vestibular nucleus and the reticular nucleus. Now before shifting to the next point of that is the function of the cerebellum. Now before that you must know some characteristic features about these functions of the cerebellum. Now cerebellum acts as the assistant. So here, so automatically always there is two and first, so means it has role in both planning as well as the executing. For basal ganglia, if you see, the role is in the planning, but here cerebellum role, it is in the both the aspects of the motor activity. That is the planning of the activity as well as the execution of the activity. And while executing, if you see, the cerebellum is getting the information from the cortex as well as cerebellum is getting the information from the peripheral part. So here it will act as a servo comparator while executing the activity. So this basic thing you must be keep in mind while understanding the functions of the cerebellum. So here in the previous lecture already I have told the cerebellum is called the silent area. So this term is used because of these characteristic features of the cerebellum. So in that first characteristic, that electrical excitation of the cerebellum does not cause any conscious sensation, as like in the motor cortex. If you stimulate that particular part, it will view the movement of that particular part. But removal of the cerebellum causes body movement to become highly abnormal. Means here directly does not show any effect, but its absence causes the tremendous disturbances of the body movement. And important in that, here which type of body movement are mainly disturbed? That is, the cerebellum is especially vital during rapid muscular activities such as running, typing, playing the piano and even talking. Even though I am talking, even you are reading. So here all this, how it is controlled? If you see, these movements are smoothly going on one by one at subconscious level. You can't conscious about that changing that movement. So here the cerebellum role is very important in such type of rapidly sequential changing movement one by one. And loss of this area of the brain does not cause almost total incoordination of such type of rapidly acting sequential movement, but does not cause the paralysis. So these are the important characteristics. So what is the first important characteristic? The cerebellum is mainly important in which type of movement? Mainly in the rapidly sequential changing movement such as running, talking, walking, all that. Now, and absence of cerebellar lesions does not cause paralysis of that concerned muscle, but it will cause the total incoordination of these movement. Now again next important characteristic feature of the cerebellum, you have to remember that the control of cerebellum it is the ipsilateral. Means cerebellar hemisphere control, it is ipsilateral, means along the same side. So here this is explained with the help of this figure. Now already we have discussed the various tract. So in the efferent tract, from cerebellum, that is from cerebellum, first that tract is relayed into the thalamus, But now if you see this from the cerebellum, that information is going to the which side? Opposite side. Even to the red nucleus, it is going to the opposite side. Now here, while execution of the movement, it is the function of the cortex. So execution of movement takes place via the cerebral cortex, and it is conveyed via the pyramidal tract, that is called as the corticospinal tract. So means even though the information is going from the cerebellum, but it is conveyed to the peripheral part or executed to the peripheral part via the corticospinal tract and cerebrospinal tract. And if you see the pathway of this corticospinal tract, here it is crosses while entering into the spinal cord toward the opposite side. So automatically here first cerebellum, connection from cerebellum going to the cortex in the opposite direction. Again from the cortex it is crossed at the spinal cord level. So automatically the cerebellum control of this information, that is starting from this, then to again it is coming along the side of the cerebellum, that is along the same side, that is ipsilateral control of the cerebellum. So this figure nicely explains how the cerebellum control the ipsilateral movements of the body. So here same, that cerebellar hemisphere, then to the opposite cerebral cortex, then it is executed by corticospinal tract and the cerebrospinal tract that control the opposite side body movements. Now the functions of the cerebellum. So in that the functions are divided under these four categories. One by one we will discuss in detail after that. Now first function of cerebellum, it is important function, that is the control of posture, equilibrium and muscle tone. Now here this function is mainly carried by the vestibulocerebellum part, that is the part of flocculonodular lobe and the adjacent portion of the vermis. Then second function, important function of cerebellum is control of voluntary movement. Now this function is carried by or controlled by the which component of the cerebellum, that is spinocerebellum. And third important function, that is to plan, sequence and time the complex sequential activity, that is the function of lateral part of the cerebellum, that is the cerebrocerebellum. So now we will discuss one by one each function. So first we will shift to the control of posture and equilibrium. Now in this figure we will get the idea, that is this posture and equilibrium, it is controlled by the vestibulocerebellum and the central part of the vermis. Then this part is mainly responsible for the control of the distal limb voluntary movement, and this is for the planning. Now this control of posture and equilibrium. Now to carry this function, this vestibulocerebellum will getting the information from the vestibular nuclei as well as vestibular apparatus, also from the tectocerebellar, that is from the auditory as well as visual information, and these are the apparent information. Then efferent information is carried via the fastigial nuclei to the vestibular nuclei and the reticular nuclei, and it is executed on the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord via the vestibulospinal tract and via the reticulospinal tract. So this is the now if you see, the cerebellum is important mainly in carrying the function of the posture and equilibrium, not in the stasis condition, but mainly important in the when the person are doing the rapidly sequential changing movement. So by this flowchart you can clear-cut get understanding how the cerebellum will help to maintain the posture and equilibrium. Then second function, that is control of muscle tone and stretch reflex. Now here already in the tone lecture we have seen that there are the certain areas. Now this tone on the muscle is mainly regulated by the reticulospinal tract. These tracts are of two types, number 5 and number 4. So this 4 number, it is the reticular inhibitory area, and number 5, it is the excitatory area. And if you see these excitation, it is the intrinsic property, but this inhibition is under the control of due to the signal from the higher center. So this higher center, that cortex, basal ganglia and cerebellum, influencing on this reticular formation to maintain the tone of the muscle. Now this number 6, it is the vestibular nuclei, that is also having the positive influence, but peculiarity of this vestibulospinal, it is that it mainly influences via the alpha motor neuron activity and mainly influences the extensor muscle tone. Now cerebellum have the role on the reticular formation as well as the vestibular nuclei. The cerebellum is giving the inhibitory signal to the vestibular nuclei as well as the reticular nuclei to control the tone. So here this influence of the tone is explained with this chart. So this anterior lobe of cerebellum via fastigial nuclei to ipsilateral vestibular nuclei and bulbar reticular formation. Already I have explained with the help of the image, inhibit the tone. So what is the influence? That is the inhibition of the tone, and via both vestibular nuclei as well as the reticulospinal nuclei. Now second point, that cerebellum forms an important linkage of the alpha gamma system. So that I will explain with the help of this image. Now, so here in the decerebrate preparation that come across in the lecture of the posture, so there is section is taken between the superior collicula and inferior collicula. So automatically the inhibitory influence from this 1 and 2 will get lost from the reticular formation. So automatically what will happen? Increase in the tone. So term given, that is the rigidity. That is there is the presence of the decerebrate rigidity. But this rigidity, now here only one center, inhibitory center is remained. What is that? Is cerebellum. Now here it is found that this decerebrate rigidity is facilitated if the cerebellum is removed in the decerebrate preparation. So in decerebrate preparation, if cerebellum is removed, this rigidity is enhanced. But what is the peculiarity of that rigidity? This rigidity initially it is due to the gamma motor neuron. It is only solely due to the alpha motor neuron. Why? So already I have told you that the cerebellum giving inhibitory influence over the vestibular nuclei as well as this reticular formation. Now here if cerebellum is removed, this vestibular nuclei inhibitory influence will get lost, and this rigidity is shifting from the mainly due to the alpha motor neuron. So the cerebellum is called as the center of the alpha gamma linkage in the decerebrate rigidity preparation. So in the how will you explain that cerebellum forms an important linkage of alpha gamma? Already I have explained, that is in intercollicular differential experimental preparation, cerebellectomy enhances the tone, and it is due to excessive alpha motor neuron via vestibulospinal projection, because this vestibular nuclei will get escape from the inhibitory influence of the cerebellum. Now the next function, important function, that is mainly of the spinocerebellum, that is control of voluntary movement. So in that control, what functions are carried by the cerebellum? First, it provides smooth coordinate movements of the agonist and antagonist muscles of distal limb to perform acute, skillful, purposeful, patterned movement. and while performing this movement it acts as comparator and carry the smooth and coordinate movement of this part. Then while carrying the movement it will prevent the overshoot of the movement, and to damp the movements means it will decreases the oscillation of the movements. While doing the movement it decreases the oscillation of the movements, and it controls the ballistic movements. So what is meant by the ballistic movement? Ballistic movements means the entire movement is pre-planned and set into motion, that is continuously going on, that it will start, again go for some distance, again then to stop. Such now I am talking, you are reading, even you are typing. So when you are doing, even you are running, if you see these movements are continuously going on, and such movement and cerebellum have the role that due to its predictive functions it controls the ballistic movements. So simply talking, reading and even running, all these are the examples of ballistic movements. Now here prevents overshoot of movement. Now if you see all the movements are going on in a pendular fashion, so automatically if you even doing the flexion and extension, what will happen? It will start for the certain particular period, then after that immediately it will stop, again opposite action occur. So here this is controlled by the cerebellum. So when the movement is start, it will stop at the particular period, and if it does not happen, what will happen? There occur the oscillation of the movement. Why? Because if these inhibitory signals are not coming from the cerebellum, this movement is oscillate to and fro in between the contraction and relaxation. And cerebellum have the main important role. It prevents such oscillation and we can do the activity properly. That is important function of the cerebellum. And this is all this voluntary movement control function is carried by the cerebellum mainly to the basic property of the neural circuit. What are the basic property of that neural circuit? That it provides turn on at the start of the movement, it will give the turn on signals for the agonist muscle and simultaneous reciprocal turn off signal for the antagonist muscle to start the movement. Then on approaching the termination of the immediate movement, it immediately giving the turn off signal to the agonist muscle and turn on signal to the antagonist muscles. And this Purkinje cell, this climbing fiber Purkinje cell circuit is important. Learn to correct the error and predictive function. That's why it is possible to in the sequential movement to turn from one from the other movement, and you can do the activity smoothly. Each activity while doing, we are doing the smoothly. Now here the circuit or the connections that will explain how the cerebellum control the voluntary smoothly control and coordinate the voluntary movements of the distal limbs. Now if you see, this is the spinocerebellum. This spinocerebellum, it is getting the intended plan information via the corticopontocerebellar tract, via the rubrocerebellar tract about the plan of the information. Then also feedback signals are getting from the spinocerebellar tract, that is dorsal spinocerebellar tract as well as ventrospinocerebellar tract. Now, so automatically, now here in this figure it is same. This is intermediate zone of the cerebellum that is getting information from the spinocerebellum as well as from the motor cortex as well as from the red nucleus. Now cerebellum compares. Now here from the periphery, cerebellum is getting the information. So what is the position of the movement, what type of movement is going on, and what is the plan, or what is the signal, or what is the information or command is given by the higher center. So it will compare, and whether that command is sufficient or whether some change is required, that is compared by the cerebellum. Again signals are given by the cerebellum again back to the red nucleus as well as motor cortex, and automatically that corrective signals are executed to the peripheral part via the corticospinal tract and via the rubrospinal tract. Rubrospinal tract ultimately gets joined with the corticus. So this is the plan, or this is the connection. By that we can explain how the cerebellum coordinate smoothly the movements, and as well as it will act as comparator while pursuing this type of the movements. Now the next function, it is now here with this image. These are only for understanding. I have taken this image. So how the cerebellum have mainly role in these are the fastly frequentially going on movement, that is coordinate movement, balance, timing, proper alignment, and cognitive learning. So this is also the example how cerebellum is helpful to carry out the smoothly the coordination of all that intended movement. Now the important part, that is the here these lateral cerebellar hemispheres are highly developed in human being. So and large in human being as compared to the other species. Now here this part of the cerebellar hemisphere mainly helpful to plan, sequence and time the complex movement. So automatically its function are combined with the cerebral cortex. So automatically this is explained with the help of this to and fro communication between premotor, primary and association somatosensory, that is motor cortex and sensory area, with the lateral zone of the cerebellar hemisphere, and this to and fro communication between these parts will plan, sequence and time the movement, and according to that the movements are executed. And here if all these movements are going on, if you see the important function in this planning sequential movement is the judgment of the predictive action of the in the further second, and that function cerebellum help to provide extra motor productive function to carry out the repeatedly sequentially movement one by one. And this is possible mainly by the which connection, that is the climbing fibers and the Purkinje cell connection, that is very important to provide extra motor predictive function as well as learning action of the cerebellum. Now after completion of the functions, so in the functions we have discussed that is important role is maintenance of the tone, posture, equilibrium, then mainly in the role of the smooth execution of the voluntary movement, and third in the planning, sequencing and timing of this movement. Now automatically if you see the cerebellar lesions, or that these effects are seen mainly in coordination of the voluntary movements. So we'll discuss one by one all these points. Now here in the cerebellar hemisphere already you have seen that the control is ipsilateral cerebellar. So if there is lesion on one side of the cerebellar hemisphere, the signs or clinical features are seen only on that side. But if the lesion is on the vermis, then it is the clinical features are seen on the both sides. So these clinical features we will discuss under the following some points. So the first we will see what are the disturbances of the posture. So in that person subject, it is seen atonia or hypotonia. On which side? On the same side. The control is the ipsilateral. Now it is contradictory. So because in the tone we have seen that the cerebellum giving the inhibitory influence, but why we are getting the atonia or hypotonia in the cerebellar lesion? So the explanation, it is given as in the guidance, that while already I have told in the last lecture, that are the signals going from all different signal going from the cerebellar nuclei, and here first signal that is going from the cerebellar nuclei, it is excitatory. That means it is facilitating the command that is given by the higher center, and it is found that while doing the movements, that facilitatory or acceleratory effect of cerebellum is must to carry out that movement. So it is given that, so here atonia or hypotonia might be due to this loss of this first facilitatory or excitatory signal from cerebellum while doing the movement, and that is causing the atonia or hypotonia on the ipsilateral side. Then attitude, that is position of the scale of the muscles in various parts. Now here, as there is the hypotonia, so automatically how the position is seen, position of the muscle is seen, body is seen, face is rotated toward the opposite side because of the hypotonia on the same side. And lesions, as there is hypotonia, lesion side shoulder is lower than that of the normal shoulder, and leg is abducted and rotated outward, spontaneous deviation. So when you stretch the hand, so automatically along the ipsilateral side limb will get deviated because of the hypotonia. Then nystagmus means tremors of the eyeball. So already I have told you that is the, while fixing the movement, while seeing the movements, there occur the sequential contraction of the eyeball muscle, and so this sequential contraction of the eyeball muscle automatically is regulated by the cerebellum. So as there is cerebellar lesion on the same side, when the person is trying to fix on the object, so due to this hypotonia there is seen the tremors of the eyeball when person is trying to fix on the object. Now deep or tendon reflex, already I have told you that is the cerebellum is mainly responsible for to prevent the oscillation of the movement. So automatically the deep or tendon reflexes get weak and get pendular because there is loss of that turn and turn of signals of the agonist antagonist muscle. Mainly all these effects are mainly seen in the voluntary sequential type of movement, not in the resting condition. Then what are the voluntary, second point, what are the various voluntary movement disturbances? So that are explained with the help of following point. So first it is in asthenia, means weakness of movement or feebleness of the movement. Means here as there is no facilitatory impulse, so automatic movements are weak to while starting the movement. And ataxia, incoordination of movement, that is seen in the form of decomposition of the movement. Movement is not going in one planned sequence. There occurs the decomposition. It is split in various parts or synergy. So there is lack of coordination between agonist and antagonist muscle. And here again third point is dysmetria. Movement is poorly carried out in the direction, range and force due to the lack of the coordination. An important clinical characteristic feature that is seen in the cerebellar lesion, it is the intention tremors. These oscillatory actions are seen only when the persons are doing the voluntary movement. So that's why the term given, these are the action tremor or intention tremor. These oscillatory movements are absent during resting condition. They are seen only when the person is doing the movement, and these are the coarse tremor having the frequency of 4 to 6 cycles per second. Gait, it is due to the hypotonia on one side. It is to get the position. Gait is wide based feet. Person walks in zigzag line to maintain the equilibrium, but it will going to deviating to the affected side, and so this type of gait is called as the drunken gait. And next important character is speech is slow and lolling due to the incoordination of the muscles of the various components of the speech. So there is loss of coordination, and that's when speech is slow and lolling type. Now here these effects with the help of image or clinically we can judge with the help of various tests. So I will show you the images of that cerebellar lesions. So here clinically important features due to this loss of coordination, it is in the form of the adiadodokinesia, or it is also called as dysdiadodokinesia, means inability to perform alternate movement rapidly. That is here alternate supination and supination and pronation. This rapid, if you ask the subject to do the alternate supination and pronation fastly, person is not able to do due to the loss of coordination. So here is the same, that is, this test is called the knee pad test, that is alternate pronation and supination. Next, this incoordination is also tested clinically by the finger nose test. In that also we can do in the which procedure alternately, fully supination and fully pronation. This movement is also affected, so in the cerebellar region. Then dysmetria, there is the person failure to terminate the movement at the proper time, resulting in undershooting or the overshooting because of the loss of the coordination. Then this incoordination is also tested clinically by one important test, that the heel knee test. We ask the subject to slide over other limb shine of the leg and see here if there is loss of coordination, person is not able to do this movement smoothly. So this coordination is also tested clinically by the heel knee test. And here this is the typical drunken gait that is in cerebral lesion. So already I have told you that is the widely based gait. Person is trying to get balance on the normal side. There is and so person walks in the zigzag manner. So these are the important clinical features of the cerebellar lesion. So in summarize, so in connection and functions, we just summarize what points today we have covered. So in connection we have covered the afferent connections. That afferent connections are mainly, that is the corticopontocerebellar tract, then alveocerebellar tract, then tectocerebellar tract, vestibulocerebellar tract, reticulocerebellar tract, spinocerebellar tract, dorsal as well as ventral spinocerebellar tract, cuneo-cerebellar tract and tectocerebellar tract. Then again efferent connections, we have discussed all these efferent connections are going via the nuclei. That is why from the dentate nucleus, mainly from the lateral part of cerebellum to the cortex in planning sequencing of the movement. Then from the intermediate spinocerebellar part, that intermediate cerebellum part, mainly going via the nuclear interpositors for the smooth coordination of the voluntary movement. Then for via vestigial nucleus from the procrinoidura, mainly for the toe and part of the vermis for maintaining the tone, posture and the equilibrium. So, and lastly we have seen the characteristic features of the cerebellar lesion. Thank you.